Hello everyone, FSG here, hope you're all doing well. Now Giants have just released a load of new information, probably the most detailed information we have seen so far about rice, and they're covering off both different types of crop, that is the normal rice and the long grain rice. So without further ado, let's jump in and find out some very, I think, interesting information. So they're quick to point out at the start of the blog that not all rice is the same, and that there are in fact two types for FS25. We have what's known as generic rice, and then we have the long grain rice. So let's start with rice. Now, the big difference here is that this is planted in a wet field, in a paddy field. So you start off with a flooded field and then you put your plants into the ground. There are 4 growth states, with growth state 4 being the harvestable state, but then there is also your harvested and your withered state as well, as you can see in the image here. Now, maximum yield is going to be 13,200 litres per hectare, but it sells for quite substantial $3,300. Now, obviously, that's on easy difficulty, so it will go down a little bit with the different levels of difficulty. And you only need 156 litres of seed per hectare. 4 months growth duration, and you plant it in April or May, and you can harvest August or September. Now, if you compare that to long grain rice, you get a maximum yield here of 18,000 litres per hectare, so a decent bit more. But the average selling price is more than half as much as you get for the standard rice. Again, difficulty being easy on that one. And you also need to use more seed per hectare as well. So a little bit of a calculation there to work out which is the most kind of lucrative. Also, the growth duration is 5 months in total. So you plant it in April, and it's ready to harvest in September. And again, you've got your 4 growth states there. So what actually happens, in the difference between the two here, is that you plant the long grain rice, then flood your field, whereas with the standard rice, you flood the field and then plant the saplings into the wet field already. Now, Giants go on to say here, rice and long grain rice need different water levels, machines to sow and harvest, and seeds, of course. Long grain rice isn't sown in water like the other one. Instead, the rice paddy for long grain rice gets flooded after the sowing, not before. But let's go back to the beginning, and this is probably the most exciting thing for me in this whole blog post. We actually start to see some of the elements of the build menu here. So we've got 5 icons down the left-hand side there. Clearly the first one is building, second one is your productions, third is for animals, fourth is decoration, I'm guessing some sort of street light there, and the fifth one is for your landscaping mode. Now, they've showed us nothing beyond that in terms of what's included in those menus, only that we can see that the paddy field here is part of the same type of tools as we had for grapes and olives in FS22, and you can see both grapes and olives sitting there as options as well. But what I really like about this is the controls that you have. So you can see there that you can create a field of any shape or size. So you don't have to click on a field and it creates a border around it. You're in essence drawing this like you would be drawing a fence or your olive trees or your grapevines. So it looks like you can add corners at any point. You can remove last corners. Now, I thought this was interesting. Does that mean, and this is pure speculation on my part, that maybe when we're in landscaping mode, you can maybe remove the last action? I know it's not a full undo, but if you could even remove one last action, that would be a step in the right direction. Now, I am not saying that's in there. That is me pure speculation at this point, but it is just interesting that you can remove the last corner or the last stage. So that is interesting. You've got change placement height in there as well, and you've got toggle for snapping on or off, so you can either be a little bit more freeform or maybe stick to a predetermined grid in there. But in essence, what it looks like is you draw around the field or the shape that you want within a field. So like I said, it doesn't have to be the whole field. If you just want a corner of one field to be a rice paddy, you can just do that, which is, I think, really nice. That flexibility is awesome. I really can't wait to get my hands on that and have a play with it. I think that's genius the way they've done that. And maybe opens up the possibility of pastures that can be drawn to the shape of land in the future. Am I again hoping for too much here? Am I speculating too much? But it looks like potentially there's the option for the tool to exist. We'll have to wait and see. Now we're moving on again. We're going to look at the greenhouses. Now it looks from what it says in the blog post here that you can, if you want to, just go and buy your seeds or your saplings direct from the shop and plant them in the ground. But you actually appear to be able to get a yield bonus if you use the greenhouses and create your own saplings. It doesn't say how much from a percentage, but it looks like there is a little bit of a reward for going to that extra effort to grow the saplings yourself. So nice touch there, and encouraging people to go through the whole process rather than just buying the seeds and throwing them in the ground. So I like that a lot. Nice touch there. Really, really good to see. I mean, it's still options at the end of the day. You're giving people options, which is what's always good. Then we move on to the planting and the harvesting stage. So they're talking here about the specific planters that you use. So you use a standard planter. I think we've seen that in some of the fact sheets already for the long grain rice. But equally, we've got the Iseki planter there for the rice in the paddy field. So if it's your pre-flooded fields for rice, you have to use a specific planter. Of course, with the long grain rice, you get to plant it first, then you can flood it after you've planted the rice. Now, interestingly, it says in the content as well here that the rice planter will take care of the fertilization, so you don't need to add an additional fertilizer spreader like with other crops. Now, there's an interesting element here as well. When you first build your field or you shape your rice paddy, it says that it is pre-limed. So instead of having to put the lime on as part of the process while you're planting or after you've planted, it's already existing. So actually, the application of lime only needs to be done at the end of the process after you have harvested it and preparing it for the next season. So that's interesting. Also, it looks like lime isn't needed after every single harvest as well. So a bit like some of the crops with ploughing. You know, for example, if you took corn, you need to plough your fields afterwards, but if you grew something else in it like wheat or barley, you don't need to. Looks like there's something similar here with the rice in terms of you don't need to lime after every harvest, but after a few harvests, you will need to replenish the lime in the field. Now, as we've already said, when it comes to long grain rice, you don't need any water to sow your plant, so you just use a standard seeder to plant the rice into the ground, and once you're done, that's when you flood the field. And here we get to see the interface that you need to flood your field. So once you're at the right point to flood the field after you've seeded it, you just hit the flood button, and you can also empty it as well. Now, there is a challenge as well that you need to check your water pump daily to make sure that it has the proper water level in it. If you don't do that, you're going to lose some of your rice saplings as well. Again, another little bit of detail that I do like. It isn't kind of plant and forget for 4 months or 5 months. You've got to keep an eye on it, or you could end up losing some of that yield. Now, it appears if you do everything right, all the water will disappear. So if it gets to the harvestable stage and you've maintained that water level throughout, it will absorb that water and then the field will be ready to harvest. And of course, with long grain rice, you can just go in there with a harvester with a standard header and harvest it that way. Now, the final element here, it says sell it, store it, or process it further at selected production plants. So obviously, rice is going to be included somewhere in the production chain. What that is, I'm going to say noodles after seeing Hutan Pantai last week. But it says we're not done yet. To cultivate another batch of rice, apply lime to the field and cultivate the paddy with a cultivator. Now, is it saying there that you don't have to replant, that the rice saplings are still in the ground and they will produce more rice, similar to the dual cut that we look like we're going to get with spinach as well? That would be exciting, and that would really make this quite a lucrative crop. We'll just have to wait and see. I think that's what I'm picking up from that, but I'm not entirely sure. And then finally, at the end of the blog, they have just rolled through a number of different screenshots of the different growth stages, as you can see, both for the standard rice and then for the long grain rice. It's nice to see that they've done 2 different types of texture across the board for these. It's not just that they've changed the final growth stage. They've actually changed the way the crop looks all the way through the process, which I think is lovely. Nice attention to detail, and I think they both look fantastic. So there you go, some really detailed information on both the new rice crops there. There's a few things that I'm really excited about. One is the shaping of the fields. That gives me so much hope that there is more to come from the build menus in other elements as well, fingers crossed. But I do love the fact that you can create a field of any shape or size for your rice paddy, and it doesn't have to be the size of the field that's been determined on the map. So I'm really, really pleased about that. I love the fact that if you want to maximize your yield, you have to go that extra mile and build those rice greenhouses as opposed to just buying the saplings from the store. I also love the fact that you've got to maintain your water levels within the field, so it isn't just plant and forget for a few months. It feels really, really kind of quite immersive, quite an immersive crop to work with. So super excited about this. There's loads in this that's getting me excited. I mean, let's be honest, I'm already pretty pumped for FS25, but just getting these extra details and getting this extra information coming from Giants on things like the crops is fantastic, and I can't wait to get a hold of rice. So hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, all the information will be in the description below and you can read up on it yourself. Let me know what you think about rice now you've seen this extra information. I, for one, think it's something I could quite happily get along with when the new game comes out, and I can't wait to give it a go. But for now, from me, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your support as we roll towards FS25 launch and also 100k subscribers. So take care, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.